Michael Jenkins wiped sweat from his brow as he heaved the last box labeled Ethan's Trophies into their new living room. After years of apartment living, the modest 3-bedroom in Sunnyside Estates represented everything he'd worked for as a single father. His 12-year-old son Ethan pressed his face against the back window, eyeing the shimmering community pool that had sealed the deal on their purchase. "Dad, when can we go swimming?" Ethan called, practically vibrating with excitement. The crisp knock at their front door came before Michael could answer. Outside stood Patricia Wilcox, perfect blonde bob, designer sunglasses perched on her head, clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. Her smile never reached her eyes as she introduced herself as the HOA president. "Welcome to Sunnyside," she said, thrusting a 3-inch binder of regulations into Michael's unprepared hands. "Unfortunately, the pool is closed indefinitely for renovations. And that truck of yours," she nodded toward Michael's weathered pickup with visible distaste, "belongs in a garage, not sullying our driveways." Michael forced a polite smile, even as he caught Patricia photographing his moving boxes with her phone. His neighbor across the street mouthed sorry from his lawn. That night, Michael discovered a laminated violation notice on his windshield. The offense? Excessive visible cardboard on moving day. When he casually asked about the pool at the mailbox cluster the next day, a mother of 3 leaned in conspiratorially. "Patricia shut it down 2 years ago when some kids played music too loudly. She still collects the maintenance fees though, $250 per household annually." She glanced nervously over her shoulder. "Just don't make waves." The last family who complained found themselves with daily inspections and eventually moved out. Michael's jaw tightened as he watched Ethan, staring longingly at the locked pool gate. The boy had overcome his fear of water after nearly drowning at age 7. Swimming had become both therapy and triumph for him. Now, behind the fences of their supposed dream home, chlorine-scented freedom sat tantalizingly out of reach. 3 weeks and 7 violation notices later, Michael sat at his kitchen table surrounded by printouts of Florida HOA statutes and Sunnyside's own bylaws. His highlighting revealed numerous irregularities in Patricia's governance, particularly regarding the pool closure. "It's official," he told Ethan over breakfast. "She can't legally keep the pool closed without a safety inspection, which was never conducted." Armed with documentation and 26 neighbor signatures, Michael arrived early to the monthly HOA meeting at the community center. He noticed how residents clustered in silent factions, those who nodded encouragingly at his petition, and those who avoided eye contact entirely. Patricia's entrance silenced the room. She commanded the space like a general, minions flanking her as she arranged color-coded folders with mechanical precision. When Michael presented his findings during open comments, Patricia's porcelain veneer cracked. 2 bright spots of color appeared on her cheeks. "Not a chance, buddy," Michael assured him, straightening his tie before heading to work. "Just finish your summer reading today, okay? No swimming until I'm home." At his architectural firm, Michael could barely concentrate. By lunch, he'd drafted a formal complaint to the state HOA Oversight Board and was researching legal representation when Patricia's name flashed on his phone. "Your hooliganism ends today," she hissed without greeting. "I've called a hazmat team to assess bacterial contamination. The pool will be permanently decommissioned." Michael's blood ran cold. "That's illegal without board approval. Try stopping me," she sneered before hanging up. Something in her tone sent Michael racing to his car. He called his neighbor Diane repeatedly during his frantic drive home, but got no answer. Meanwhile, Ethan had been listlessly attempting to focus on The Giver for his summer reading when a text buzzed from his friend Kyle. "Dude, your pool rebellion is all over next door. You're famous." The temptation was too great. Ethan peeked outside and saw no activity at the pool. Just a quick dip, he reasoned. His dad would never know, and he'd still finish his reeling before dinner. The water felt perfect as Ethan practiced underwater handstands, his favorite trick since overcoming his fear of submersion. He was upside down, eyes closed in concentration, when the rumbling of heavy machinery vibrated through the water. Above ground, Patricia directed a cement truck to back up to the pool's edge. She had bypassed the board entirely, fabricating an emergency structural crack requiring immediate remediation. "But ma'am," protested the foreman, "we need proper permits to fill in a pool, and we'd need to drain it first." "I have all necessary documentation," Patricia snapped, waving a folder of what were actually parking violation templates. "This is an emergency situation requiring immediate action. Begin pouring now, or I'll call your supervisor." Diane Blackwell was walking her terrier when she spotted the cement truck. Hurrying closer, she noticed Ethan's shoes and towel abandoned on a lounge chair. Horror struck her as she saw movement in the pool water. "Stop!" she screamed, running toward the pool as the first cascade of gray concrete began sluicing down the incline. Ethan surfaced for air, confused by the commotion, just as the leading edge of cement hit the water 10 feet away, creating a hideous gray bloom in the turquoise blue. Time seemed to stop. "There's a child in there." Diane's voice shattered the frozen moment. The cement worker lunged for the emergency cutoff while Patricia stood motionless, her composed facade finally crumbling as camera phones emerged from gathering neighbors. "I didn't," she stammered, dropping her folder. "I didn't know." But 3 different neighbors heard her earlier instruction to start at the deep end where the Jenkins boy likes to swim. The county courthouse buzzed with whispers as Patricia Wilcox entered in handcuffs, her designer outfit replaced by orange scrubs. The local news had dubbed it the Concrete Karen case, and national outlets picked up the story of an HOA president who nearly entombed a child in cement. Michael sat stoically in the front row, Ethan beside him, as the charges were read: reckless endangerment of a minor, attempted aggravated assault, falsification of documents, and embezzlement of over $175,000 in HOA fees. The forensic audit had revealed the shocking truth. There had never been any pool renovation fund. Patricia had been diverting maintenance fees to a personal account for years, using the money to fund secret cosmetic surgeries and a timeshare in Aruba. Outside the courthouse, former Sunnyside residents who had fled Patricia's reign of terror shared their stories with reporters. HOA reform advocates cited the case in proposed legislation. Michael's inbox overflowed with interview requests from documentary filmmakers. "Do you feel vindicated?" a reporter shouted as they left the indictment hearing. Michael placed a protective arm around Ethan's shoulders. "This was never about winning. It was about teaching my son that standing up to bullies matters, even when it's hard." 6 months later, on Memorial Day weekend, residents gathered for the grand opening of the completely renovated Sunnyside Estates community pool. The new board, headed by Diane as president and Michael as treasurer, had recovered most of the embezzled funds through litigation. A modest plaque by the diving board read, "Dedicated to those with the courage to stand up for what's right, even when underwater." As Ethan prepared for the ceremonial first dive, Michael spotted the former residents who had returned for the occasion. The Ramirez family, with their once forbidden roses. The elderly couple who could now paint their door the color they wanted. The single mom who had faced punitive fines for having a basketball hoop. Patricia's house, meanwhile, stood empty, a bank foreclosure sign swinging in the breeze. "Ready, Dad?" Ethan called from the diving board, confidence radiating from him. Through the shimmering heat, Michael watched his son, not just swimming now, but flourishing. The community around them had transformed from isolated, fearful households into genuine neighbors who borrowed cups of sugar and watched each other's pets. Sometimes standing your ground meant finding solid footing where you least expected it. "Ready?" Michael called back, camera poised. "Make a splash." And Ethan did. "Mr. Jenkins," she cut him off, voice arctic. "Perhaps in your previous living situations, you weren't familiar with proper community governance. The pool remains closed by unanimous board decision due to ongoing safety concerns." "What safety concerns specifically?" Michael pressed, sliding copies of his research to other board members. "Because according to Florida Statute 720.303, you've violated transparency requirements by not documenting them." The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees as Patricia's eyes narrowed to slits. Other residents shifted uncomfortably. but several nodded in agreement. "The pool has become a liability," she snapped. An elderly man in the back stood shakily. "My grandkids visit every summer," he said. "We've paid maintenance fees for a pool that's been dry for 2 years." I second Mr. Jenkins' motion. Patricia abruptly adjourned the meeting, but the damage was done. In the parking lot afterward, neighbors surrounded Michael, some offering support, others warning him to drop it. She made the Ramirez family's life hell for planting unapproved rose bushes. One whispered, "Foreclosure proceedings and everything." That night, Patricia's Mercedes idled outside Michael's house for 15 unsettling minutes. The next morning, he found every single one of his garden plants had been inspected and uprooted for invasive species testing. Ethan's disappointment turned to anger. "She's just a bully, Dad," he said, helping replant their flowers. "My teacher says bullies win when good people do nothing." Michael took photos of the damage and filed a police report. The war had officially begun. "You've stirred up a hornet's nest," chuckled Diane Blackwell, a retired attorney 3 doors down, examining Michael's growing documentation. "But legally, you're right. The board needs a supermajority to keep amenities closed beyond 90 days without documented safety hazards." Word spread through Sunnyside Estates about an unofficial pool committee meeting at Michael's house. 15 neighbors arrived, bringing covered dishes and decades of Patricia grievances. "She fined me for having a Christmas wreath up on January 2nd, said one. "My mother was in hospice, and she reported my grass for being a 1/4 inch too high," added another. Together, they formulated Operation Cannonball. When Patricia left for her sister's wedding in Tampa that weekend, volunteers would restore the pool to working order. Saturday morning arrived with military precision. Diane created a lookout network of dog walkers with cell phones. Mr. Grayson, a retired contractor, brought industrial cleaning equipment. 3 other neighbors handled chemical balancing and equipment checks. Michael coordinated from a clipboard, channeling his project management skills, while Ethan excitedly skimmed leaves alongside other neighborhood kids. By Sunday afternoon, the long-neglected pool gleamed turquoise under the Florida sun. The filtration system hummed properly for the first time in years. Strings of solar lights appeared along the fence. Someone replaced the broken pool furniture with donated lounges. "Is it legal?" Ethan asked, vibrating with anticipation as he clutched his swim trunks. "More legal than keeping it closed," Michael answered, showing him the relevant bylaw. "The pool is supposed to be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during summer months." As if breaking a spell, Ethan's cannonball splashed into the deep and released something in the watching adults. Soon the pool area filled with laughing families. Portable speakers played summer hits. Someone brought watermelon and homemade cookies. For 3 glorious hours, Sunnyside Estates remembered what community meant. Nobody noticed the drone hovering briefly overhead, its camera capturing everything. Tuesday morning dawned with an emergency HOA email blast. L'authorize de pool ACCSS co-anstatutscy maintain LTRESPASING. Violators will be PROSUTD. Special ACSMNT meeting. Till NIHT, 7 p.m. Mandatory ATE and ANC. Michael paced his living room, phone erupting with texts from neighbors. Patricia had returned early and was apocalyptic. The meeting promised to be nuclear. "You won't back down, right, Dad?" Ethan asked over breakfast, his hair still chlorine-frizzed from swimming the previous evening.